Hello. So today is going to be my first video shooting my new camera setup. So that's why you can see the camera's actually closer to the table. So I've got a proper folding arm this time, so a bit of a stick with something to hold the phone onto. So hooray for me! So this influences one will be. Is a book. It's not one specific artist. It's actually a book that I bought in 1998, and this is like a 1996 reprint of a second edition, a 1996 second edition of a book that came out in 1976. So the second edition, you'll see some bits that did come out after 1976. Some of the anti-war, some of the anti-nuclear stuff. So it's a book by a art professor called Dawn Ades, and it's on photomontage. I usually say collage with everything, but for all intents and purposes, what I do is mostly could be the actual proper term is montage. I generally use the term collage because it's still valid, but it's better known. It's more search engine friendly. And it's just got when you say montage, most people will be like, but collage, they know that. But collage also comes with it the expectation from some people, not as many as actually you'd think of. Oh, well, that's just what kids do. But this montage, it sounds a bit more professional. In fact, the term montage came from some people I believe in Berlin Dada, where they didn't want to call themselves artists, so they called themselves engineers. That's where it comes from. It's from a contraction of words to mean engineering of an image or something. So from the French word monter and something else. So before this book, my experience of collage was, what is montage, was mostly from the punk records I bought. So when I got this, it really opened my eyes. Funny, if you can believe it, I'd never heard of people well, like for instance, I've heard of Dada, but I didn't really know much about them until I read this, and it gives a good history of the art form. I might, and also before I go on, also this is since this 1986 version in 2021, she did a revised third edition, which I don't currently have, but I have placed on order because, as you can see, this copy is getting a bit damaged. You see some water damage at the bottom, but so she's going, and there's I don't know if there's more illustrations. There's more pages. I think there might be some more illustrations, and also they're in colour. So I don't know if the text is any different, though, so I'll have to give that a good read. The cover is a piece by Hannah Hock, someone or Hook. I apologise to anyone in Germany who might be watching this if I mispronounce in any other language other than English. If I accidentally massacre any of your names, I apologise. It's Hock with an umlaut over the O, so it might be Hook or something, but I think most people would just accept Hock. So, and we'll be doing something on her because she is one of my influences, as in her and John Hartfield. I attest to being basically the pioneers of this art form. There's endless debate about who actually came up with it first. It's quite likely they probably did come up with it independently of each other, and then brought it to the table when they joined Berlin Dada. I don't know if this argument will probably never be resolved, and I just attribute both. It's a both, basically. And what they did, especially stuff after Dada finished, where, as you will see when I do my two separate videos on them, because I'm going to do one on John Hartfield as well, obviously. What they did afterwards was very different. So So this is a piece by her. Let's see, it will probably say what the title is. It's not saying here. I cannot remember what the title of this one is. It's very bad. But this is a new edition, revised, expanded version of it. So since its first published in 1976, a considerable amount of critical and historical material has been published, which has bearings on the subject of this book, particularly in relation to Dada, constructivism, and surrealism. And this is mostly its focus, because the only one thing, slight criticism I might have on this, is the fact that it's nothing about punk art. But you know, that information can be found elsewhere. It'd be nice if there was a little bit, because especially when it comes to the 1986 version, is gone past the version, you know, the iteration of when punk came and went, and well, rose in ascendance and then dropped a bit. There's punk is still here, and the art form is still here, and there are some people who do work for that. And so there could have been a mention of Jamie Reed, or G. Vorcher, or Winston Smith, because some of the, I know Winston Smith's work is primarily in using old 50s magazines and stuff, and you know, that kind of retro thing. But he does have photo montage based stuff. Same with G. Vorcher. Most of her stuff is, a lot of her stuff is, you see on Crass Records, are like gouache paintings, but there are some photo parts, as you've seen from previous videos, which if you haven't seen them, go back and watch them in this playlist. But here you get some of the early versions of this. So you've got a photogenic drawing, and then you've got some people made some postcards where they put this together. And I saw a thing where people, Victorian noble wives would make these things, these photo montages of usually of family members and so forth, and putting stuff together. But it was never really considered, and this is some of these are composite photographs. This is a composite photograph, but it wasn't actually specifically called an art form, as in an art form of photo montage, until Berlin Dada. And the term collage kind of was about before then, because the cubists would experiment. Some of the cubists would experiment with like putting things, sticking a real world object, a printed object, onto their paintings. Like I think Picasso did a matchbook or a stamp or something, that kind of thing, to play with, to push the boundaries of art. So that was the kind of beginnings of that, but it's not this yet, where it's actually called photo montage. So you've got some earlier things like that. I mean, there's still from 1980 film. Even back then, they were using optical compositing for films, and this picture here is where they've taken two different pictures. So obviously it goes a lot into Dada for obvious reasons. The very famous picture, which I will go I'll be going more to into my Hannah Hawk video, of cut. She's called it here cut with a cake knife. I've seen that term used other words as well, but most of the time it's actually called cut with a kitchen knife. So this is actually quite a large piece. It's I think it's like at least four A4 pictures, maybe even bigger than that. I think there's a picture of it of them at the first Dada International Fair, so I think that's in the background, so you'll be able to see. And so you've got the pro Dada people they like, Einstein there, but it's anti-Dada, so somewhere you've got the Kaiser and so forth, and tiny objects somewhere. There's Hannah Hawk somewhere, I think she's there in one part. And yeah, some of hers, Dada Ernst, and sometimes they were actually doing collages with them involving themselves, and this is experiments with typo collage as well. So this book really opened my eyes, and you see I've bookmarked pages because I did actually do. I had a magazine, and I did honestly I've underlined things because I did have my own magazine once, and I did some um, I did some a couple of articles on Hannah Hock. I did one on Hannah Hock and John Hartfield. The rest I didn't really bother with. Like Raoul Houseman, at the time he portrayed himself as being like the big. I am the big genius, but history has not that any stuff was bad, but he was dating Hannah Hock at the time on the side. She was while he was married, and basically he tried to make himself to be the big clever artist, and basically history has shown things differently, I believe. Here we go. Here's a picture from the Berlin Dada Fair, and you can see that's cut with a kitchen knife, and see how big it is. And back then, this was like the early part of the 20th century, so things like that we, some of us consider varying levels of consideration to. Copyright wasn't really even thought of them. They were just putting this stuff out and see what happens, and nobody, as far as I know, nobody got done for copyright infringement. I don't even know if copyright was a thing then. That's something to look into, really. So you've got these ones, and here in 1922, Hannah Hock, she's considering she's doing African elements into her work. And here we go, George Grass and John Hartfield. This was in 1919. Now, this is very different from the kind of stuff you get to see John Hartfield do later on in life. And Raoul Houseman, the art critic. That's one of the more famous ones of his. I see that one printed a lot more. This is a famous one when talking about punk art. This is one of John Hartfield's The Spirit of Geneva, which when there was a punk band called Discharge, and basically they isolated the background. They didn't want the building there, but they just kept the image of a dove being stabbed by a bayonet, and they used that for the cover of their album Never Again. This was quite a famous one as well, of during the Spanish Civil War. So this really opened my eyes to all the different different artists and different types you could have. It really gave me a real inspirational boost, and it's good to see that all these other artists that did that as well, and other things I could play around with. So you've got issues of Private Eye, which wasn't so, they didn't use montage too much. I mean, I've actually had my art rejected by them because it's just not really their style. And again, this one from 1980, so that's from the second edition of a anti-Thatcher piece. And here we're talking about, and this got used by Discharge as well, for their another album of theirs, Hear Nothing, See Nothing, Say Nothing, and the two very famous pieces by Peter Kennard. Obviously, he's putting cruiser missiles in the Haywain, and this gas mask piece, and it goes into Soviet collage art, or photomontage, which is not something you'd think of happening very often. And some of the artists that did this would be probably will have at some point probably been liquidated, because after a certain point they didn't want the Soviets, especially people like Stalin, Khrushchev, didn't want such experimental pieces of artwork. They wanted more realism. So all this great stuff here, I mean, even if I don't know what it's saying, even the Soviet alphabet in put in with these pictures are amazing. Stylistically, it looks good. And there's this dropping people from planes as bombs. So all these people, seeing all this different styles I could do influence me in some way. Apologise for that. It's got put in a box somewhere and it got a little wet at the bottom, so that's why it's the pages have fused at the bottom a bit. And you got some, again, things in Japan. Again, a lot of Soviet stuff. So you got more. The bulk of this is mostly like Dada and the post Dada, and Soviets or Russian artists. It really got taken up by then, even if it's artists who were no longer within the Soviet Union. And there's a guy called Paul Citron did some interesting stuff as well. So you're going to see a lot of spattered through this: John Hartfield and Hannah Hawk and Raoul Hausmann and Kurt Schwitters. Also Max Ernst. You see some of his stuff, some of his black and white stuff, because I can't remember if these are actually in the particular book I have, but he put out some pamphlets of where he had taken mostly like Victorian images and basically made collages of those and made stories based on them. So that's something I'm going to go into later. So this is one of Max Ernst. And early surrealist stuff, that's one by Andre Bresson, which you don't see much of that. So this is 1938, so this is while he was after surrealism was established. Again, more Andre Bresson. You don't see much hear much of Andre Bresson's visual stuff. Think more of him as the writer and basically the guy behind surrealism. That one, the part by Marcel Marion, Incest. You'd expect that to be. I could easily see that on a punk record cover. So, and Marcel Duchamp, some of his stuff. There you go. This is also quite a famous Hannah Hawk piece. So this is all a really good book. I'm just learning about how it all came about, and the different styles was and how what people's thought processes were was immensely inspirational for me. It was a bit knew there was more historical precedents. Here we go, we've got Monty Python. They were an influence in me as well. Not as much so much for the animations, although not saying they didn't influence me at all, but it was more of the attitude and spirit of the show that really influences me. I regularly rewatch it. I just sometimes like a good dose of silliness, and I hope that comes through in my artwork sometimes. When you, at the very least, the ones that, even some of the angry political ones, sometimes you'll see a bit of the silly going in, because I say two of the things I like the most about this art form is I like the immediacy of it. I don't have to spend like about 5 hours painting something, although sometimes a more complicated collage can take that long. But I also like the rather forceful smashing together of different disparate elements, the juxtaposition. And those are my two primary reasons for liking it. I just like the anarchic feel to it. It's everything is for me sometimes being autistic, growing up growing up undiagnosed autistic, the whole world felt wrong, or portions of it felt wrong, and I just didn't feel like I fit in anything. And this is also almost a way of like making things fit, you could say. So here you've got subjects like photomontage and non-objective art. So they tell you about how it could be used in other art forms and art movements. I should have actually separated these before I actually did this video, but this is why I'm buying a new copy of the book, by the way, in part. But I'll may do later on do a version of this with the new version. So I strongly advise this book. I don't know if you can get this second edition anymore. If you can, well, you probably can, but you may have to poke the nose of it because it's been out of print for a few years now. So, or I believe it must be if there's a third edition. Um, I highly advise it recommend it anyway. It's a good read. Even flipping through it, I've sometimes haven't in years, for a while, because obviously it got buried away. But flipping through it, especially when I was really trying to find my feet with this art form, it really helped me. Um, and it was very inspiring to see where it came from, and some of the names and styles and the directions these people went in. Because, like I said, with John Hartfield, his things went in a very different direction after. I mean, 1933 Justica. So after Dada, he went more in the political route. This is a very famous piece of his, Adolf the Superman swallows golden spouts junk. And this was also used for a magazine that he did work for called Arbeiter Illustrated Zeitung, or known as AIZ. And there's some of the stuff he did in the lead up to the Nazis taking power, and when he, I think after he fled Germany, and obviously the makers of that magazine fled Germany, they were able to resume doing that work again. So let me know what you think about this, the book and the video, and like, share, and subscribe. Especially share and subscribe, because if you think other people will like this, let them know. Subscribing helps me out immensely. It's a free way of helping me. And go to my link tree, which is in the description. We used to call it the show notes, but maybe seems a little pretentious. Um, and Also, there's it's got my links to my socials, my merch, sort of my Patreon, which doesn't get much use, but I would be working on that more and promoting that more. And there's various tiers of how you can financially help me, and stuff you will get um, depending on the tier. So you could get some original artwork of mine every month. So I shall hopefully then hear from you and see from you soon. Thank you.